We did it, guys! We officially have reached the halfway point of Harley Quinn Season 3 on HBO Max now, today with Episode 5, which is exactly what we're going to be talking about. So, of course, before we get too far into breaking down this episode, I do want to give a quick spoiler warning if you haven't seen the episode yet, so go check it out on HBO Max. But without further ado, let's jump into this and break down Harley Quinn Season 3, Episode 5, titled, It's a Swamp Thing. So, of course, we begin our episode with Ivy. She is looking for Frank because Frank's been kidnapped. You know, we spent last episode trying to figure out who his kidnapper is. That didn't go well at the Court of Owls orgy. But then now she is going to look through the green, which is basically the kind of the connection through all plant life. And Ivy is able to tap into that. But she's having a little trouble here in this episode, at least at the beginning. So then Harley reveals, like, oh yeah, we actually have plans with Nora Freeze tonight. So now Ivy's got to deal with that at the same time. So they kind of decide to meld the two things together, girls' night out and finding Frank. So they decide they need to go visit Swamp Thing in New Orleans to see if he can help tap into the green and locate Frank. So they do. They go to New Orleans. They actually meet up at a bar where they end up finding John Constantine, played by Matt Ryan, which this was honestly probably the best part of the episode. I loved it so much. Matt Ryan is, he is and always will be to me John Constantine. He is just perfect for this role, both live action and in animation. He just is John Constantine. So I loved having his little cameo in this episode. We saw it in one of the trailers that did a breakdown on that, so it wasn't really much more than what we saw in the trailer, but still, it's just so cool seeing him in this show. And of course, Constantine, being Constantine, you know, he's playing around with his magic and casting spells and everything, and then he says, alright, we're gonna do a drinking contest. And so that doesn't exactly go well because everybody gets drunk, everybody passes out. Nora Freeze apparently outdrinks Constantine, so she ends up getting the map to Swamp Thing Swamp. She goes there, and then, you know, Harley and Ivy, they wake up the next morning, they're wearing different shirts, and so they call Nora, they find out, oh yeah, I'm at the swamp, so come meet me here. And I do also love how, like I said, they're wearing different shirts. Constantine is wearing a shirt that says, I tanked the shark, which I think is most likely a reference to the Justice League Dark Apocalypse War movie, where there was a reference to the fact that Constantine and King Shark supposedly did some stuff. So I thought that was a great reference. And honestly, I would love to see those two characters actually meet on this show. But after this, of course, Harley and Ivy, they go to the swamp, they go to find Nora, but now she's all of a sudden disappeared. And they do this cool little dramatic jump scare type scene of like, oh, she gets dragged away in the woods, and it's like, oh, what happened to Nora? Well, when we meet up with Swamp Thing, turns out he and Nora actually hooked up. So that's what happened to Nora. So, you know, good for them. We've seen Nora being a little, well, actually very horny in this whole season, and really since she was introduced on the show. You know, she's got this new lease on life here. But meanwhile, in this episode, we do also have another storyline going on with Batman and Catwoman. Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, of course, they're dating. We know that Selina's been staying in the Wayne mansion with Bruce, but they're having some problems. So Alfred hooks them up with a therapist who actually turns out to be the Music Meister. So that was really cool seeing Music Meister in this episode, and seeing Bruce and Selina singing about their feelings to each other. That was hilarious, of course, but also kind of sad and heartbreaking in the end, because it's basically saying that, oh, Bruce loves her, he doesn't want to be alone, and then Selina's like, yeah, I just want to be alone, and that's actually really sad in this moment. So she ends up leaving him. It has a really depressing ending to that storyline in this episode. Maybe we'll get more developments on that. Maybe they'll get back together soon, but speaking of heartbreak, though, when we go back to the whole Swamp Thing storyline, Swamp Thing finds out that Nora doesn't want a serious relationship. He's not her boyfriend, and she was basically just using him just to hook up, you know, just for fun. And so he gets kind of mad about that. So we do get to see Swamp Thing, like, really go beast mode in this episode. His eyes turn red. You see the whole area around them. The swamp just, like, turns into a wasteland, and vines are being flung all over the place. It was really cool. Really shows how powerful character Swamp Thing really is. Now, how do we defeat him? Well, Ivy actually ends up doing that basically by talking about her feelings, which, you know, is kind of a cliche thing and maybe like, whatever, the cringy or whatever. But I actually really liked it in this moment because you know, you kind of had the setup here of Ivy and Swamp Thing used to be friends, but now they're not, and you kind of get some of the backstory on that, so I enjoyed that. But then also seeing her, how he says that, like, you don't care about anybody, you've never lost anybody, and then she really gets into how Frank is her best friend, and that's why she's here. She's here because she lost her best friend. And so we get this really nice emotional moment that then makes Swamp Thing realize, like, oh, okay, I will help you find Frank. And, you know, everything's all good. And then all the flowers start blossoming. The sun comes back out and everything. But then, of course, we get the thing at the end where it's basically like, oh, you had the power within yourself the whole time. So Swamp Thing isn't the one that actually taps into the green in this episode. It is Ivy. She just had to face her fears and face her emotions to finally realize that she does have the power to tap into the green and find Frank. Which is then when we do finally find out who Frank's kidnapper is, and it's Bruce Wayne. This I definitely was not expecting, and you see him, you know, he's got all these needles and stuff, and he's got Frank hooked up to the table, and he's doing like experiments and tests and all this stuff, and it's he's like, he says something like, Ivy's done something to him, and I intend to find out what. So I think it makes sense, and it's actually going to be really cool because, you know, Batman versus Poison Ivy is a classic thing, but, you know, seeing how we have Ivy and Harley being the protagonists of this show this season, you know, it's interesting seeing that Batman is going to be kind of our villain of this season. And especially seeing that now Ivy and Harley both know that Bruce Wayne is the one behind all this, it'll be interesting to see how much longer this lasts, if it's actually a full season, Bruce Wayne is the main villain of the season, or if it goes in a different direction. I don't exactly know, but I do like that kind of the whole Selina leaving him thing actually gives more motivation to make him seem even more villainous in this situation as well. But guys, that was Harley Quinn Season 3, Episode 5, It's a Swamp Thing, and I really enjoyed this episode. You know, I enjoyed, of course, especially seeing Matt Ryan back as Constantine. Swamp Thing with Sam Richardson was a great addition as well. Just added for some really nice emotional moments and action scenes with Swamp Thing, and of course, the whole thing with Selina and Bruce was pretty funny as well. Music Meister, so I enjoyed that. But yeah, guys, of course, I'm excited for next week's episode. I have no idea what it's about. You know, we already knew episode 4 was going to be the Court of Owls. We knew episode 5 was going to be Swamp Thing. But I have no idea what we're going to be getting in episode 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm really excited to see what unravels in the rest of this season. But for now, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What did you think about Harley Quinn Season 3, Episode 5? What did you think about all these characters showing up? And what are your predictions, thoughts, and theories of that reveal of Bruce Wayne? And for what's going to happen in the rest of the season? So anyways, guys, thanks so much for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video. And hit the subscribe button so I can keep up to date on everything goes on in the DC life.